Terry Thomas truly hated him more than anyone. Terry Thomas was born Thomas Terry Hoare Stevens on July 14, 1911, in Finchley, London. He was one of the most distinctive and beloved comedic actors to ever grace the British stage and screen. Known for his gap-toothed grin, suave demeanor, and impeccable sense of comic timing, he carved a unique niche for himself in post-war British cinema. His on-screen persona, a charming upper-class cad or bounder, often complete with a cocktail in one hand and a sardonic quip in the other, became a signature that audiences adored and instantly recognized. Yet behind the slick exterior lay a consummate professional whose dedication to his craft elevated every film he appeared in. Terry Thomas began his career in entertainment in the 1930s, working as a band leader, a cabaret artist, and eventually as a radio personality. He served in the British Army during World War II, where his natural talents for humor and morale boosting found him producing and performing in service entertainment units. His breakthrough came in the 1950s, when he transitioned to film, starring in a string of popular British comedies that included Private's Progress, 1956, Blue Murder at St. Trinian's, 1957, and perhaps most iconically, I'm All Right, Jack, 1959, where he played a hilariously devious corporate manager. He became a staple of Ealing-style British satire, films that poked fun at class distinctions, bureaucracy, and post-war society with wit and a knowing wink. One of Terry Thomas's most defining characteristics was his ability to portray the archetype of the cad without turning the character into a true villain. His comic characters were often selfish, vain, and cowardly, yet so disarmingly funny and self-deprecating that audiences found them irresistibly lovable. His rich, plummy voice and signature phrases, like, "You're an absolute shower," became national catchphrases and solidified his place in British pop culture. He was a master of exaggerated mannerisms, making full use of his expressive face, clipped diction, and, of course, the famous gap between his front teeth, which became an unexpected trademark and endearing quality. In the 1960s, his fame expanded internationally. Terry Thomas was cast in major American and European productions, often playing variations of his well-known persona. He appeared in ensemble comedy classics such as It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, 1963, and How to Murder Your Wife, 1965, where his impeccable comedic instincts continued to steal scenes alongside international stars. Despite his typecasting, he managed to keep his performances fresh, imbuing each with subtle variations that revealed his depth as an actor. Whether playing a military buffoon, a scheming socialite, or a cowardly adventurer, he remained consistently delightful and endlessly watchable. Yet, while his professional life was marked by laughter and success, his personal life was eventually touched by tragedy. In the late 1970s, Terry Thomas began showing symptoms of Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological disorder that would slowly rob him of his ability to perform. He retired from acting in the early 1980s, and by the end of the decade, his health and finances had sharply declined. In a heartbreaking turn, the man who once epitomized debonair confidence and comic elegance was reduced to living in near poverty. It was a deeply moving moment for the public when fellow actors and admirers, including Michael Caine and Richard Briers, organized a fundraising gala to support him in his final years. It was a poignant testament to how beloved he was in the entertainment community. In the year 1937, a pivotal and formative moment occurred in the early life of Terry Thomas when he crossed paths with a remarkable and charismatic South African dancer and choreographer named Ida Florence Patlansky. Known professionally by the evocative stage name Pat Patlansky, she was a vibrant and highly skilled performer with a flair for dramatic flamenco, a genre that required intensity, passion, and precision. Patlansky had traveled to London seeking a partner for her flamenco act, someone who could complement her fiery stage presence with rhythm and character. However, during her audition process, she quickly recognized something unique in Terry Thomas, not his ability as a dancer, but rather his wit, comedic timing, and distinctive personality. Rather than seeking a traditional dance partner, Patlansky made an inspired decision. She chose to cast Terry Thomas not as a co-dancer, but as a comedic foil to her performance. With her theatrical instincts guiding her, she envisioned a new kind of act that blended her dramatic flair with his eccentric and charmingly upper-class comedic style. This creative partnership led to the formation of a cabaret double act, cleverly billed as Terry and Patlansky. Their performances quickly captured the attention and admiration of London audiences, who were drawn to the originality of the duo. The elegant dancer juxtaposed against the sharply dressed, gap-toothed comic with his exaggerated manners and posh accent. Their chemistry on stage was palpable, mixing visual comedy, dance, satire, and light musical numbers, and they quickly became a favorite on the cabaret circuit. Off-stage, their partnership blossomed into a romantic relationship as well. The bond between Terry Thomas and Patlansky deepened rapidly, leading to their marriage on the 3rd of February 1938 at the Marylebone Register Office in London. Following their wedding, they set up home together in a fashionable address at 29 Bronwyn Court, in the leafy and artistic neighborhood of St. John's Wood. The area, known for its bohemian culture and proximity to central London's theaters and music halls, offered them a fitting base from which to launch their creative careers. Despite their initial success and the attention the Terry and Patlansky act generated, the double act proved short-lived. After just 3 months of performing together in this format, the duo faced the harsh realities of the entertainment industry, where novelty often wears thin and tastes shift rapidly. The formal cabaret act disbanded, though both remained active within the performance scene. They continued to work together on a more modest scale, taking on smaller engagements around the cabaret circuit, including appearances in various clubs, music halls, and private functions. These performances, while not as high-profile as their earlier work, kept them involved in the evolving London entertainment scene and helped Terry Thomas gain valuable experience and visibility. A significant milestone in Terry Thomas's career came shortly thereafter, on the 6th of June, 1938, when he made his very first radio broadcast. He appeared on the BBC London regional dance program titled Friends to Tea, a popular early evening show featuring music, light entertainment, and variety acts. Although this should have been a triumph, Terry Thomas would later admit with candor and self-deprecating humor that the performance was far from his best. In his own words, "I didn't give a very good performance. I was a dismal failure." This honest reflection demonstrated both his critical self-awareness and his relentless drive to improve. Far from being discouraged, he treated the experience as a lesson in the rigorous demands of radio performance, which differed significantly from stage work. By the end of the summer of 1938, new opportunities presented themselves when the popular and stylish bandleader Don Rico took an interest in the pair. Recognizing their potential, Rico invited them to join his orchestra. In this new collaboration, Patlansky took on the role of pianist, a position that showcased her musical talent beyond dance, while Terry Thomas served as the compere or master of ceremonies for the orchestra's performances. This role suited him perfectly, as it allowed him to exercise his talent for improvisation, wit, and charming audience interaction. His persona, effortlessly suave, yet laced with comic absurdity, helped solidify his reputation as a rising comedic talent within the world of entertainment. Fast forward several decades, and the personal relationship between Terry Thomas and Pat Patlansky had long since soured. After years of growing apart and leading increasingly separate lives, they formally divorced on the 1st of February, 1962. Their estrangement had endured for the previous 8 years, during which time Terry Thomas had pursued other romantic connections, most notably a significant relationship with the Australian singer and actress Lorraine Desmond. Desmond, a talented and vivacious woman, had a brief but emotionally intense relationship with Terry Thomas. However, by the time of the divorce, this liaison had also ended, with Desmond choosing to return to her homeland of Australia, where she would go on to marry a surgeon and enjoy a stable personal life. The departure of Desmond left Terry Thomas emotionally adrift. The end of this meaningful relationship caused him considerable sadness and forced him to re-examine his personal life. Though known publicly for his suave and comically aloof demeanor, privately he was deeply affected by romantic disappointments. In the wake of this heartbreak, he returned to a bachelor lifestyle, which, though outwardly glamorous and filled with social engagements, likely masked a sense of longing for deeper connection. That emotional gap was filled unexpectedly during a holiday in Majorca 2 years earlier, when Terry Thomas had encountered a young and radiant woman named Belinda Cunningham. Just 21 years old at the time of their meeting, Belinda brought a fresh vitality and sincerity to his life. Despite their considerable age difference, a genuine and affectionate bond developed between them. Their romance blossomed gradually and steadily over time, ultimately leading to marriage in August 1963. The wedding took place at the Halstead Registry Office near Colchester in Essex, a modest and private affair compared to the spectacle that might have been expected from a man of Terry Thomas's theatrical stature. Their union marked a turning point in his life. Belinda provided him with companionship, stability, and unwavering support, qualities that would prove essential in the years to come. In 1964, their marriage was blessed with the birth of their first and only child, a son named Timothy Hoare. Timothy was born at the Princess Beatrice Hospital in London, a well-regarded maternity facility. The birth of his son brought a new dimension to Terry Thomas's life, giving him a sense of grounded purpose that had often eluded him during his decades in show business. Fatherhood, while late in coming, became one of the most cherished aspects of his personal life, and Belinda would remain by his side throughout the later, more challenging years of his career and health. Among the many figures Terry Thomas encountered throughout his long and varied career in entertainment, there was perhaps no individual who provoked such visceral loathing and enduring contempt from him as the American actor Mickey Rooney. While Terry Thomas was a quintessential English gentleman in demeanor, albeit one whose exaggerated aristocratic affectation was often part of his comic persona, he possessed an inner code of conduct that valued politeness, wit, mutual respect, and a certain panache even in professional disagreements. Rooney, by contrast, seemed to personify everything Terry Thomas found distasteful in a colleague: loud, brash, entitled, crass, and above all, unrepentantly rude. Their professional interactions left an indelible mark of disdain on the British actor, and the feud, or more precisely the one-sided detestation, became almost legendary in its bitterness. Their paths most famously crossed during the production of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, 1963, a sprawling ensemble comedy featuring a veritable army of comic stars. While the film was a box office success and is often remembered for its chaotic charm, the behind-the-scenes atmosphere was far less harmonious. Terry Thomas, who was used to working in ensembles with decorum and an air of collaborative professionalism, was utterly appalled by Rooney's behavior on set. Rooney, at that stage in his career, was struggling to maintain relevance and financial stability, and perhaps driven by his desperation to reclaim the spotlight, had adopted a domineering, arrogant demeanor on set, barking orders, stealing scenes, and treating technicians and fellow actors with breathtaking disregard. He often interrupted rehearsals with crude jokes, shouted over the director, and created a toxic atmosphere that grated against Terry Thomas's cultivated sense of civility. To Terry Thomas, Rooney's relentless egotism and coarse behavior were more than just irritating. They were an affront to everything he believed the acting profession should be. While Terry Thomas relished the idea of comedic excess on screen, he had no tolerance for it off-screen when it came at the expense of basic human decency. He was particularly offended by Rooney's insatiable need for attention and his tendency to belittle those he deemed beneath him, including crew members, extras, and even waitstaff during catered lunches. Terry Thomas reportedly told friends that working with Mickey Rooney was like being trapped in a room with a vulgar, ill-tempered child who refuses to be quiet or behave, a damning remark that captured the depths of his disgust. The animosity went beyond mere annoyance or temporary frustration. In later years, when asked about his least favorite co-stars or worst on-set experiences, Terry Thomas would, with almost theatrical exasperation, recount his run-in with Rooney. It wasn't just a case of clashing personalities. It was, in Terry Thomas's view, a matter of principle. Rooney to him was not simply uncouth, but the embodiment of Hollywood at its most grotesque. Overindulged, emotionally unstable, and devoid of humility. Despite Rooney's obvious talent and long legacy in the industry, Terry Thomas seemed unable, or perhaps unwilling, to forgive his behavior. Unlike the many showbiz spats that fade over time, Terry Thomas's disdain only seemed to harden with age, as if Rooney had scarred some essential part of his sensibility. There is even an often retold anecdote from years after the filming of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, when Terry Thomas was attending a party in Los Angeles and learned that Rooney might be in attendance. Without hesitation, he reportedly made his apologies and left immediately, muttering under his breath, "Life is far too short to endure that little man again." For someone who made a career out of playing eccentric but lovable cads, it was a rare instance of genuine antipathy, unfiltered, unapologetic, and deeply felt. In the end, Terry Thomas's loathing of Mickey Rooney was not rooted in a single altercation, nor in professional rivalry. It was born from a fundamental incompatibility of values and amplified by the close-quarters intensity of film production. For Terry Thomas, Mickey Rooney was the only person he would openly say he truly hated, and for a man who wore his disdain as elegantly as his trademark gap-toothed smile, that hatred spoke volumes. On the 9th of April, 1989, the actor Jack Douglas and Richard Hope Hawkins organized a benefit concert for Terry Thomas after discovering he was living in virtual obscurity, poverty, and ill health. Teehee Gala, held at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, ran for 5 hours and featured 120 artists, with Phil Collins topping the bill and Michael Caine as the gala chairman. The show raised over £75,000 for Terry Thomas and Parkinson's UK. The funds from the charity concert allowed Terry Thomas to move out of his charity flat and into Busbridge Hall nursing home in Godalming.